Blog Talk Radio.
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Night Callers on this May 3rd, 2009. Beautiful afternoon here. We just got the power back on after being off for 12 hours. Came on seconds before the show was supposed to start. You know, it's getting to be old hat, isn't it, Tennessee?
Yeah, it seems that way.
I scrape in here by the hair of my teeth, and so anyway, I just wanted to say, everyone, I've got power, so everything's going well. Last week at the end of the show, I had mentioned something about finding these towers out in the woods, and I just wanted to let everyone know that even though I was convinced they were Bigfoot eradication towers put up by the government, it was a huge conspiracy, I was wrong. Now I'm going to say it publicly, I was wrong. Turns out they are long-eared bat habitats. They didn't look like any kind of bat habitats I've ever seen, but that's what they are. There was a call made to the Forest Service, and that's what was revealed. So I did some research on it. Turns out that Missouri, the long-eared bat, has moved from that area. It's moving down south because they're losing habitat. They look for hollow trees, bridges, and caves. So they set up these bat habitats here in the National Forest here in Texas in hopes that they can harbor these migrating long-eared bats. So anyway, we didn't see any evidence of any bats being in them yet, but maybe they will. Rest assured, you can sleep tonight. The government is not annihilating our Bigfoot as I had once suspected, and the world is just as it should be. So we're going back to our show tonight. Want to let everyone know that Tennessee Cherokee's name is really Brian Wallin. If you've heard me call him Brian, and so that there's no confusion, I'm now handing it over to Brian. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Laurie?
I'm doing great. Did Lauren ever show up?
I'm here.
Lauren's here.
Sorry, I'm late. I'm here.
Aha!
You're going to get a tardy slip, girl.
I'm cooking dinner. Sorry. The party don't start till I walk in. It's all right.
Yes, that's it. The party don't start till you get here. Has our guest called in yet?
No.
Haven't seen her yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to give her a call then. Obviously, she's having busy circuit problems. So I'm going to let you two chat for just a minute. Let me run and get her. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
I'll be right back. Y'all will hang there.
Tonight, first I'd like to welcome everybody out there that are listening to our program tonight and sort of give you a little lead into our special guest tonight is Miss Linda Godfrey, and she has written several books. Probably her most well-known book is The Beast of Bray Road.
Mm-hmm.
This Beast of Bray Road was first reported in the 1980s on a rural road outside of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. The Walworth County Week, that's the name of their local newspaper there, chose Linda to pick up this story and to run with it. The beast has been reported as a hairy biped resembling a Bigfoot, large, intelligent, wolf-like, apt to walk on its hind legs. Reported height, standing on two legs, is 7 feet tall, and in the quadruped position, about 4 feet. Estimated weight is between 400 and 700 pounds. And some other folks have even said it has a bear-like appearance. Hello? Night caller.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Is this you, Linda?
This is me. This is Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
we
can hear
can.
you.
Okay.
Great.
Linda, if you'll just take a seat back for just a second, he's going to finish introducing you, and I just want to make sure you weren't having trouble calling in, okay?
Seemed to work fine, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Some of the explanations for the Beast of Bray Road have been that it's a wild dog. It's an animal called a wahila, said to be a giant prehistoric wolf similar to an amarok. A wolf dog, a coy dog. Also, the legend, a popular song came out about the Michigan Dog Man, which is different from the Beast of Bray Road, but it came out in '87, and there's really no link between these two creatures. A movie came out in 2005, The Beast of Bray Road. It was directed by Lee Scott, and it starred Jeff Denton and Tom Downey. The first sighting to go public was on Halloween night in 1999. A young woman by the name of Dorothy Gibson, she was from Elkhorn, Wisconsin, and she was driving along Bray Road near DeLavin. Near the intersection of Hospital Road, she leaned over to adjust her radio and took her eyes off the road momentarily and suddenly felt the right front tire jump up off the road as if she had struck something. She stopped and got out, and she saw this dark, hairy form racing toward her, described it as bulky, and she jumped in the car, and as she tried to speed away, the beast jumped on the trunk of her car, and luckily it slid off due to the wet surface and fell onto the pavement. Dorstein returned to the exact spot later that same evening with a young girl that she was taking trick-or-treating, and again she saw the large form on the side of the road. Seeing the creature moving, she ordered the child to lock her door, and quickly they drove away. One night later that fall, a 24-year-old bar manager by the name of Lorraine Endrizi was rounding a curve on Bray Road, a half mile from Dorstein's incident, and saw what she thought was a person kneeling and hunched over by the roadside. Upon slowing down and estimating that she was only about 6 feet away from it on her passenger side door, she reported that she clearly saw a beast with grayish-brown hair, fangs, and pointed ears. She says, quote, his face was long and snouty like a wolf. Has reported powerful build, human-like fingers with claws, long arms, muscular and jointed as a man's would be. Seemed to be holding food with its palms upward, and she reported that it has yellow eyes. Tonight our guest, Miss Linda Godfrey, is considered one of the most respected authorities on anomalous animals and paranormal phenomenon in the state of Wisconsin. She is a journalist, a professional artist, a teacher, and mother. While working as a journalist, Linda first broke the story of the beast lurking in the forest around Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Linda has authored several books: The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf, Weird Wisconsin, Your Travel Guide to Wisconsin's Local Legends and Best Kept Secrets, co-authored by Richard Hendricks, another book called Weird Michigan, one called Hunting the American Werewolf, and lastly, The Poison Widow, a true story of sin, strychnine, and murder. Wow. Linda is the authority on the Beast of Bray Road and has done a myriad of interviews on the beast. She has been on Inside Edition, Sightings, Animal Planet, Discovery Kids, and the Sci-Fi Channel. Recently, Linda was featured on an episode of the History Channel's Monster Quest, American Werewolf. Please join all of us at Night Callers as we warmly welcome our guest tonight, Miss Linda Godfrey.
Hello, Linda.
Hello there. Glad to be with you.
Thanks for coming, Linda.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Would you mind if I corrected just a couple of things that I noticed? My apologies, but I did want to say that the Michigan Dog Man is exactly the same thing as the Beast of Bray Road, and exactly the same thing that is reported to me from all over the United States and the world over the past 17 years. And we can talk about that a little bit later. Also, Dorothy Gibson's sighting was not 1997, but around 1990. It was one of the clusters that were reported around that time, just before the story broke. And I actually have 10 books out. Well, the 10th is coming out in July. Yeah, I have sequels to the weird books on weird in Wisconsin and weird Michigan called Strange Wisconsin and Strange Michigan. And I also have 3 books in a series by a New York publisher called Chelsea House, which is in their Legends, Mysteries, and Unexplained Phenomena series. One is titled Werewolves. Another one is titled Lake and Sea Monsters, and the one coming out in July is Mythical Creatures.
Oh my goodness!
Well, I'm very sorry that that I got all these things wrong, but I only knew to go to the internet to get my information, and I did get it off of what I thought was a reputable website. It was a paranormal website.
Some of those
I'm
things
very sorry.
No problem. We know my things end up on a lot of different websites, and people aren't always exactly careful when they transcribe them, and so those errors tend to creep in, and it doesn't really matter. But
my apologies.
The point about the Michigan Dogman, though, I think does matter, because one thing that I really try to get at is the essential gist and nature of these creatures. And the truth is that in most of the sightings, probably 85 to 90%, I think we're dealing with the same exact thing.
Your dog is overmodulating you.
Pardon?
I said your dog is overmodulating you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My husband went golfing and was supposed to be here to babysit the dog, and it's so beautiful here that I couldn't keep him off the golf course. So hopefully we'll quiet down in a minute or so. In fact, I'm going to shut the door on him, so it quiets him down just a little bit, I hope. Sorry about that.
No problem. We were only getting about half of what you were saying, though, because he was louder than you were.
Oh, yeah, he's got a pretty good bark on him, unfortunately. And he's a little guy, too. He sounds a lot bigger than he is.
What kind of dog do you have there?
He's a Lhasa Apso.
Oh, okay.
So that does not look anything like the beast. But I guess just to recap, I guess I was just trying to make the point that there are different names for this creature in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And until I started making these reports and people began phoning them into me, I don't think people realized that the phenomena of an upright canine that acts in unexpected ways, such as running upright, carrying roadkill around in its paws, was kind of a universal thing, and it really is. Everybody thought they had their own weird little monster in their little neck of the woods. But all of these different things, it goes by different names in different places, and some people even try to put it into the Bigfoot camp, which it isn't. It's very, very different from the Bigfoot. And the thing that strikes me is that over the 17 years, people have been sending me reports, and I've gotten hundreds of them. And I actually get 1 to 5 a week yet, still, that many.
Okay,
From all
everywhere, or just the
yes, everywhere. No, it's people have this because the creature probably is most famously known as the Beast of Bray Road. That's only because that was my original title for the newspaper, because I didn't like calling it a werewolf necessarily. I didn't know what it was, and I don't like foisting my own ideas and opinions, into things that I'm putting out there. So I like the word beast a lot better, and it was seen mostly on Bray Road, so I coined that term for it. But it's not something that's only seen on Bray Road, although everybody comes and cruises Bray Road, much to the chagrin of the people who live there, steal the road sign, do that sort of thing. It's really not a very good thing to do, and it's sort of an exercise in futility, because the sightings seemed to kind of disappear around 1993 or 4, and then we had like a 10-year lull. And since then, I've gotten them sporadically again, but there's been other clusters in other places that have been really just as exciting and sometimes scarier than those on Bray Road, and that far outweigh the sightings just on Bray. I mean, there's really maybe up to 10 over a number of years, over a decade on Bray Road, whereas I can go to lots of other locations and find many other sightings and sightings clusters. So it's not like you have to drive to Wisconsin and drive down this one little road in order to see this creature. And in fact, if you do, the odds are almost nil that you will not see anything, because it's strictly by chance. It seems very random, and the sightings are usually only a few seconds in duration.
Tennessee and I both are Brian. His name is Brian Wallin, and we're trying to change over from calling him Tennessee to Brian. So Tennessee and I both have seen this creature.
You both have?
Yes.
Wow.
And we would like to tell you about our experience. I'm going to let Tennessee go first.
Yeah.
Well,
tell me first where it was.
Linda, I don't know what I saw. I don't know if what I saw was what you folks have seen and was. I did see something, and I will tell you what I saw. I was this past February, and I've only told about 4 or 5 people about this. I was doing some Bigfoot research in Mississippi. I had taken my son to school that morning, and it's about an hour drive to where I had to go. I knew that there were Bigfoot in this area and had been for a long time, and I basically were just going. Pardon?
What is the area, please?
The area is Prentiss County, Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
It's close to very close to the Tennessee-Tom Bigby waterway. Mm-hmm. Very remote area. I knew that there were Bigfoot in this area and have been for a very long time. The reason that I went, I was going to look for sign, looking for footprints and formations and things like that. I had some time that day, and I was just going to use it to go over there and just really sort of look around, see if there was anything new around. This was in the morning. I got there about about 8:15 in the morning is when I arrived there, and it was a pretty day. It was cold, it sort of windy, but I drove around and parked my car. I have this little folding cot stool that I carry with me, and I sort of took a rope and sort of made me a sling for it so I could put it around my neck, and then when I got tired, I just, fold it out and sit down and rest. Mm-hmm. I had walked, from where I parked, I walked toward the west for about 200 yards. Then I turned back right to my north, and I started, when I first started walking west, I was on an old field road. And then when I turned back to the right walking west, I was in a very wooded area. I walked up in there probably, I don't know, I had stopped and rested 2 or 3 times. I probably walked up in there a couple 100 yards. I was sitting down resting. In front of me, about 150 feet, there were a line of cedar trees. And they were big cedars. They were on up probably 30, 40 feet tall. And they had foliage all the way down nearly to the ground. I was just sitting there looking around, resting, and I had a bottle of water in my pocket, and I took it out and took a drink of water. I was just sitting there, and I got to looking at the bottom of one of those trees, and I kept seeing something very dark moving, bouncing the limbs, the bottom limbs, up and down. And I just kept sitting there looking. and it decided at one point to sort of turn, and I was looking at what when I first looked at it, I didn't realize it until I thought about it for a while, but I was looking at something that was down like in a 3-point stance with what appeared to be its left front leg down on the ground and both of its rear legs on the ground, its right front leg up into the foliage, and when it turned, I saw a profile of its head, and it had a long snout on it that looked about the length of a German Shepherd dog.
Well, that is pretty much exactly how people describe the creature.
Oh, well, it was very black, and it kept looking. Something was behind it, because it kept directing all of its attention behind it to where I couldn't see. You know, I couldn't see behind those trees, and it was looking at something behind those trees. And when it turned around and I got a profile of its head, all I had for protection, I had a walking cane and I had a hunting knife and a scabbard. That's all I had. So I just it scared the hell out of me, and I stood up as quietly as I could, and I just sort of folded that chair up and started backing up, and I was walking backwards till I walked back and thought that I could turn, and when I got out on back out there where that field road was, it wasn't following me, but I was still afraid that it was going to. So I made it to the car, and I thanked God for that, and I got in my car, and I drove back home, and even when I got back home an hour later, I was still just literally scared to death. And you know, for the first couple nights after that, I would have nightmares, and I don't know what I saw. I really don't know what I saw. I know that I saw something with a head that looked like that had a snout like a dog, but it was much bigger. This thing, crouched down, was taller than I was standing up. I'm 6 foot tall, and it was taller than I was.
Would you estimate its body weight at?
I would say probably, I don't know. I would say it would have to weigh over 800 pounds.
Oh my goodness!
It was bigger than a yearling calf, weight wise. I'm going to say 800 pounds and plus, maybe. But this was no small creature. This was nothing small, and I was just so thankful that whatever was behind it, if it was some more of them or whatever it was focused on, was back there, because I did not want that thing to turn around there and look at me. And the whole time that I looked at it, it didn't appear like it. It may have known I was there, but it didn't focus on me.
Sorry, I have a problem with my phone ringing here. I don't know what's going on. Did you get a good look? You mentioned its legs. Did you get a good look at the formation of its legs and whether they looked canine or flat-footed? How would you describe the legs?
The best I could tell, I could just tell that the legs were very strong looking, but again, the foliage from those cedar trees was down all the way to the ground, and all I was getting was just an occasional glimpse of its body.
Well, I'll tell you, the Bigfoot primates that are seen around the United States do not have long snouts. They don't. They have, more of an ape-like configuration. And if they're seen from the side, because I've had lots of people report Bigfoot sightings to me too, and if they have a good look, no matter which type of creature it is, they will always be very definite about whether they saw a Bigfoot or what I like to call a man-wolf, because the Bigfoot does not have pointy ears on top of its head. It does not have It does not have the canine legs. They're very, very different creatures. The Bigfoot is flat-footed, walks with its knees bent, and is just a whole different animal.
I understand that, but you know, I didn't get a close enough look at its legs to know, you know, to not really know what its feet looked like.
It was down on all fours. What you saw?
Well, yeah, it appeared that way, Laurie. But again, I never could see the right front leg or foot or whatever. I could see three legs going down toward the ground, but I couldn't see the fourth one. I don't know. You know, it appeared like it was sort of what it looked like to me was sort of like a football player in a three-point stance, looking back over its right shoulder.
Did you think that it was aware of you?
Well, I don't think it. I never saw it actually look directly at me. I don't see how I could be that close to it and it wasn't aware of me. What I was afraid of was getting out of there alive because it scared me to death.
Wow. Yikes. Yeah, I don't think I would have wanted. And how far away were you from it?
About 150 feet.
Too close for comfort.
Oh yeah, very, very close.
Yikes. Well, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that you saw the man-wolf, just from what you described. And the coloration of them varies from almost black to light gray, the same as you would see in any natural variation in the colorage of timber wolf pack or between any other canine species, hybrid dogs, coy dogs, wolf dogs, and wolves. They range, anytime you see a pack of them, they will range from very light colored to very dark.
Yeah, this was no dog. This was no coy dog. This wasn't a wolf.
Not at 800 pounds it wasn't, no.
No. This was something that I just couldn't wrap myself around because I had seen Bigfoot in this area before, and they're in there, and there's several groups of them that are in there, and they've made it their home there for a very long time.
Well, you know, it's interesting because one thing I've discovered is that these creatures, the Bigfoot and the man-wolf, tend to inhabit the same sorts of areas. And when I've been able to really map sightings out in detail, it looks to me like they might all be within the same, say, wildlife refuge, but there will be pockets carved out. Maybe in the northern part of that wildlife refuge, you'll see more Bigfoot, and in the southern part is where you'll see the man-wolf. And in one way it makes sense because they're both looking for the same type of terrain, something that will hide them, and something that will provide prey, you know, some kind of little deer, little rabbits, deer, whatever that they can find to sustain themselves. They seem to eat the same sorts of things.
What is the level of intelligence do you think the man-wolf have compared to Bigfoot? You know, we know that we presume that the Bigfoot has quite a lot of intelligence. We determine this by things we've seen them do and know of them doing. What about the man-wolf? Do they have more of an animal mentality, or do they have more of a cognitive intelligence?
Well, all I can tell you is what I get as impressions from the witnesses, and then what I can sort of deduce from following their behavioral patterns. And most of the witnesses tell me they feel that whatever they have encountered is something with a higher intelligence than, say, an average timber wolf or a dog or a bear or anything like that. They feel that this creature is aware of them in some odd way, more than just as a wild animal suddenly being alarmed by a human, as you would expect if they were encountering, say, a bear or a wolf. They feel that in many cases it's giving them some sort of message, and they're not sure whether it's coming through from body language or if it's some kind of very basic elemental telepathy that is not in words, but they will get an impression. And usually the impression is something like, you stay there, don't come closer, I'm here, you're there, you can't get me, do not tell anybody you saw me, I'm angry that you saw me, I'd like to eat you for lunch. It's sort of weird. And usually they're sort of ferocious and a bit, aggressive, I think, more so than what people report hearing from Bigfoot. But it makes a lot of sense because, scientists believe that man was able to become more intelligent. And this is just if you follow the strictly evolutionary line of belief. But they believe that humans became intelligent when they began walking bipedally, because then they were able to use their arms and their hands for more things. They had to develop a whole new network of neurons to do these finely tuned things that they were suddenly able to use their fingers and hands for, and that they needed a larger brain for that. And it kind of fed one thing upon the other. The larger the brain got, the more they could do, the more intelligent they got. And you can see where perhaps this would happen with other creatures. And I've often postulated that there would be a lot of advantage at some point in the past for some wolf pack to begin this adaptive change to trying to walk on their hind legs. And dogs can be trained by humans to walk and run very easily on their hind legs. So it's not really out of the realm of possibility that wild animals could find an adaptation, find something favorable. For instance, if they were living in the Great Plains where it was all prairie, think of the advantage that you've had. If you're walking on four legs, you can't see what's ahead of you. You can't see if there's some nice, tasty deer coming through the tall grass toward you. And if you poke your head up and walk on your hind legs, you can see everywhere, see what's coming. If you get it, whatever it is, you don't have to worry about dragging it away with your mouth and in turn having it vulnerable to whatever other animal of prey wants to come up and pull it away from you. You can take it in your hands or your arms and run away with it on your hind legs. You can also cross creeks with just getting 2 feet wet rather than all 4 feet. There are all kinds, and you can go on and on like that. There are lots and lots of possible advantages to where you can see that this adaptation might have made sense. And perhaps if it was a pack thing that was taught, the animals that had the bodies that were best suited or adapted for it would have survived and done the best and predominated eventually. So you can kind of make a case for how this could have happened naturally. Yeah. Of course, not everybody believes that it's a natural animal. And that's a whole different ball of wax. We'll get into that.
Well, Linda, what about their ears? I know that Brian's got a question too, but I just want to know about their ears. Do they have canine-type ears?
Yes, and that's a really big way that it can be differentiated from Bigfoot. The ears are always described as pointy, standing up. Sometimes, the size will vary a little bit, but if you picture a German Shepherd or a wolf, that's what people always say the ears look like. And it's just so consistent. And you'd think if people were making this up or it was something else, that the ears would vary, that sometimes they would be seeing no ears on it, or the ears would be floppy or round or whatever, and it doesn't happen. They're always described as the pointy German Shepherd or wolf type of ear that people see. So no beagle ears, And again, big differentiation from the Bigfoot.
Okay.
Linda, I am Native American, and the only thing that I know of that I could really call this creature is what my ancestors called what they thought this animal was, and they called it Nalusafalea. And that means the evil one.
Wow. What tribal affiliation, may I ask?
I am Cherokee Indian.
Okay.
Where I was at was near some ancient Chickasaw burial mounds.
Ah, another correlation. Very often that happens.
I'm talking about mounds. So, these graves here are, some of them are 1,000 years old.
Right, right. And why, can you tell me about this creature, or what are, I can't pronounce what you just said, but why is it known as the evil one, and what does it do?
Nalusophilia was always a harbinger of bad things. When it was seen, it was said that bad things were going to happen. So someone was going to die. Some bad event was going to happen. But it's of course it's folklore. Nothing's been proven about it, but that's what I've come to call this thing since I've seen it. I have no other explanation for what it was.
That's very, very interesting. And according to your tribal tradition, is this creature a completely spirit animal, or is it something that goes between worlds, or how would you characterize it?
Well, it's not a shapeshifter.
Okay.
Like that. There was a brother to this Nalusophilia, and he was the good one, and Nalusophilia was the bad one.
And did the brother look the same way?
That's the same thing. Go ahead.
The brother didn't have all the evil fangs and the long snout like the evil one has.
So the brother was like a Bigfoot, and the other one was like a man-wolf.
Right.
Huh.
Very interesting. I think. Pardon? I think I'm going to need Brian to email me that whole thing.
Okay,
I'm working on a third beast book right now.
Sure
that sounds like something you need to include.
That would be great.
If you could give me a way to get in contact with you, I'll be more than glad to.
Yes,
I can
definitely.
get that information. I can get
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Laurie has
all right. I think we've got a couple people that have been holding a while. Let you see about them here. I hate to make people wait on the telephone. Let's see who we have. Hello, you're on the air. Area code 407.
I think that's Patty's just listening in.
Patty? Okay, I'm sorry.
Pat.
We have one, Pat. We have one more here. Hello, area code 936. Night callers, you're on the air.
This is Texas 7mm.
Hey, Texas.
You listening in?
No, I'm getting it on the computer. I was just going to ask her if she's ever had any of these things howling, kind of like what we had up at the Texas meeting. That howl up there, Laurie?
Uh-huh. Yes.
I was just going to ask her if she's ever heard one of these.
I have not personally heard one, and the only people that have really heard it have described that they really were pretty sure this is what they were hearing, and that it wasn't just a wolf pack or something, because they either saw it right then or it was known to be in the area, describe a really different sound. And I've had different people describe this same sound to me, not knowing one another, sightings many states apart, many years apart, and it's a very unique sound. It's kind of a variable pitched growl. And the best way I could describe it would be like a cappuccino maker. And I taped these guys making this sound, and it's really bone-chilling, and it's kind of like a it rises up and down. It's hard for me to do it. It takes a man with a good growly voice to really reproduce it right. But that's the only sound that I've really been able to connect with it via witnesses. I'm sure, since its body is really entirely canine, other than a few slightly adapted things such as seeming to have more of a shoulder than a canine would have, and having longer toe and paw pads. otherwise it's completely canine. So I would imagine that it could grow and probably would indeed grow. It's just that I haven't been able to relate any howling to any one particular sighting. And that's out of hundreds.
All right. Well, like I said, just wanted to ask. Thanks a lot.
Do you want to hang on, Jason, and listen?
No, I can listen. I can listen on the computer. I'll just be in the chat room.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't want to leave you without audio. Okay.
All right. Thanks, man. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for calling.
All right, bye. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Jason. Jason and I and several other people were camping in an area, a national forest south of where I live here in Nacogdoches. It's an area that I've been researching for about 8 years. I've had a lot of Bigfoot activity in this area, and when we were there in February on Valentine's Day weekend, and we had gone to an old sawmill site. A lot of people know where I'm talking about. It's old ruins. And we were down there. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was Jason, his father, myself, a friend of mine named Rhonda, and Pat Rance. And all 5 of us had gone down in there. It was overcast. It was on the verge of raining just any second. Very quiet, very still. Went down in there. Of course, Jason started doing his strange little owl calls he does, and they are very effective in contacting Bigfoot. Well, anyway, they started getting some responses, some owl-like sound responses coming from the woods, so the men took off in one direction, and then those 2 women split up. And I was walking towards the back of the ruins when I heard an owl respond. I wasn't sure if it was a real owl or not, so I responded back to it. It didn't respond back, so I did think it was a real owl because usually real owls respond back to me. Well, it was dead ahead, and I'm sitting here with a camera, and this area is just a paranormal oddity anyway. Equipment tends to go dead there all the time. My camera was barely working, and I said, well, I had my finger on the button. I just knew that a Bigfoot was going to walk out right in front of me, and I was going to get a picture of it. Well, little beknownst to me, the men were moving around the back side of this sawmill, and that when they were moving around, whatever was ahead of them was moving also. So it wasn't going to come out. Well, I heard some birds. I heard a crow, and I imagine it was some wrens or thrushes or something. They were just pitching a fit over here to the left of me over in the woods, and generally they'll do that if there is a predator.
Oh.
And so I started paying attention to that, and about that time I saw something walking through the clearing. It was just a little clearing in the woods, and I got a glimpse of it. It was tall. It's a good little ways from me, but I could see it as it walked into that clearing. It was tall. It was lanky built. It was a dark brown. It had I was looking at it, a profile view of it, and it turned its head just before it walked out of sight. And it looked like it had a wolf head. I mean, just like a wolf. Like it had all the hair around its neck. It had the snout. I couldn't tell you if it had the ears or not because I only got a glimpse of it. Well, and another thing too, I've seen Bigfoot walk. And when Bigfoot walk, they swing their arms a lot of times. They tend to, especially when the way this one was moving. If it had been a Bigfoot, it would have been swinging its arms. Arms stayed tight to its side. I couldn't see the bottom half of the arms, only the shoulders. But the shoulders it walked kind of stiff. It's very hard to explain. It wasn't stooped over either. It was more like upright, seemed a little straighter on the back than a lot of Bigfoot I've seen tend to be humped over a little bit. And so I saw this all in just a second. Well, then in a few seconds later, I saw it again. As it came back into view again a little further along the way, the whole time the crow is just having a fit. They're just fussing at this thing. And it's still moving at a real slow pace. It's not running. It's not acting like it's afraid or anything. It's well ahead of all these men that are coming around that are right on its tail. And there's a Texas millimeter Pat and Texas millimeter's dad. Okay, so I see it again, and I look again at that profile, and I see again a snout, and we're talking a long snout, like a wolf. Just like a wolf's head. It looked just like a wolf's head. I kept noting all the hair around its neck. It was just sticking out like, have you ever seen a really shaggy dog that's got all the hair around its neck? Well, that's what I saw. It wasn't the smooth sleek like you see on a Bigfoot. It was like sticking out. It looked real mangy. Not mangy. Mangy's not the right word.
Shaggy?
Shaggy, yes.
I've had people, one way people often describe it, I'll hear, they're kind of casting around the same way you are, and they'll say it was wild and unkempt, shaggy, wild, and unkempt.
Yes. And that's the best I can describe considering the distance, but what really stuck out to me was the profile. And I didn't tell anybody, I told everyone I saw a Bigfoot. But really, in reality, I came back later and I finally told people actually what I really did see, because it kind of took me a while to really put my mind around it. I know there are Bigfoot in this area. And I thought maybe I just wasn't seeing it right, but it was broad daylight. I saw it twice. So I'm thinking,
Laurie, I can't believe these things.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think a lot of people do the same thing that you do, and I think that many times, I think that there have probably been plenty of Bigfoot reports that were actually man wolves, but since fewer people are aware that these other creatures exist, they don't know to report them, and the first word that comes to their mind is Bigfoot, and as soon as you say tall and furry and you try to report it to, say, a sheriff or a policeman, they will immediately write down Bigfoot. People don't tend to write down man wolf or beast or upright canine because it's just not in most people's vocabulary. But I put it kind of like this. If you, let's say that you were traveling to a certain part of Africa because you wanted to go on an expedition to find chimpanzees, and you were going to an area where you knew that there were a large number of chimpanzees, that people had sighted chimpanzees in the area, and let's say you were walking through the jungle and you see something, and lo and behold, it's a hyena. It has a snout, and it has a tail, and it has a dog body, and you look and the feet are dog feet, and you think to yourself, well, gee, I must be seeing a chimpanzee. It sure looks like the hyena. But the thing, you get what I'm saying? It's very, you know in your mind that these are two really different species. Primates and canines are very different, although there are baboons, which, of course, have certain dog-like characteristics, but they're still primates. They still move like primates. They don't move like canines, and they don't walk upright either. So there's a big difference. And their snouts are really not like wolf snouts or German shepherds. They're much blunter and boxier, and you'd know a baboon if you saw one, I'm pretty sure. Most people would pick up on that.
Well, it was a very pronounced snout that I saw. And what really threw me off was because everything else was indicating a Bigfoot in the area. You know, the lack of a return owl call. I'm pretty fortunate that owls usually will return a call to me. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but majority of the time they will, because they're vocal birds. They love to talk.
Right.
And I didn't get a response. And everything else that was going on, we'd run into a little fella that had been out there. They were getting ready to do a control burn. He'd been left out there by himself by his crew. He looked badly scared. He didn't want to stop and talk to us. He was pale. And that concerned us, Pat noted it right away. He said, I wonder what scared him. And so then we went on down in there, and of course the whole time we were there, I felt like I was being watched. It was just really, really strong, and it just felt it just really, really felt like we were not down there by ourselves. And so I'm expecting Bigfoot. You know, that's what's in my mind is Bigfoot. I know they're in the area, and when I saw this, it's like my mind is still trying to say I saw Bigfoot.
Right.
But then after I got to where I just said, well, I'm going to have to tell everybody I really don't think I saw one, because I can't count that as a sighting of a Bigfoot sighting, because this had a very pronounced snout, a long protruding face.
Right, and that's different, and the hair pattern too.
Yes.
Sounds very much like that.
But I don't recall the ears. That's the only thing that really, that's why I asked you about that. I don't recall the ears. Maybe it's possible I could not see the ears.
That often is what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was far enough away, and with the trees the way they were, and just getting a glimpse, and I couldn't take it all in. I seemed to be focusing on that snout. It's not supposed to be there.
Right.
So, you know, and it's very, very strange that both Brian and I both had our sightings within days in different areas. This was in East Texas.
Yeah.
And his was in Mississippi. And it was within days of each other. I would have to say approximately within a week, or maybe even several days. But it's just, and it seemed like there is an old, you know, the old folklore about it being a harbinger of bad luck. Well, it seemed like our whole world turned upside down right after that. And so there was quite a lot of stuff that happened right after that. It just seemed to all correlate. But not saying that we're superstitious or believe in anything like that. It just seemed odd that it was coincidental, I'm sure, but you never know. But neither of us had ever seen anything like that before or since. So.
Wow. Well, I'd like to have both of those accounts for the third Beast book. Yeah, which is going to be called something like True Encounters with the Beast. I haven't exactly figured out the title completely yet, but I'm hoping to have that done and out by next fall. I would love to have that from both of you, definitely.
So we were really looking forward to you coming on the show, because we've never told really anybody about what we've seen, because, you know, in this, when you do what we do, you know, have all kinds of things that you see and experience when you're out looking for Bigfoot and searching for them and everything. But you don't ever expect to run across anything like this.
No.
And so it was kind of out of the realm of our normal experience, and so we're glad to have you on the show, because we really want to learn more about the man-wolf. And so any of you can tell us about what you've learned and maybe some of the stories that you've heard and some of the things that have been related to you. We'd be really glad to hear about it. If anything that would, because, you know, things that scare you, a lot of times can take a lot of the fear away if you have more knowledge about that subject. And
well, one thing I can tell you right away is that I always tell people this, I'm really more afraid on the few times that I'm out in the woods and going on field expeditions, I'm really more afraid of encountering a bear or a cougar or an actual wolf, because those things, if you provoke them or if you surprise them wrong or whatever, can kill you and will go after you. And you can look and find different places in the country where people have been killed by bears or cougars. However, this creature, in the hundreds of reports that I've received, out of all the people who have seen it, and some have, not everybody sees it from the safety of their car. Some people see it quite close up at night. Some people have actually been chased by it. And I've only had one person report any kind of a contact injury whatsoever, and I really believe that even that one was sort of accidental. That was a man up in Quebec, where he was out in the wild,
and he came upon this in close range, and it lunged at him, and one of its fangs cut through his jeans and grazed his hip and left a very long, I think it was like a 10-inch long scar, very jagged. And I have a picture that up on my website somewhere, www.beastofbrayroad.com, and I think it's under the title of Sightings Log. If you go to, there's a main splash page, and then on the first page there's a little graph where you can click on different areas. I have a Where blog, and then I have the Sightings Log, and it's not real updated because I just frankly get too many to continually input onto there, and also I tend to find them put onto other people's websites, not often crediting me and not often getting them even right. So I don't always list new sightings, but I did post that photo that he sent me. But other than that, out of hundreds and hundreds of sightings, nobody's ever been hurt. And this creature, no matter what state or country it's in, whether it's Australia or down by New Orleans or up in Michigan, it has the same MO. Once it knows that it can get away, it does. Whether it has done that by startling you or scaring you or whatever, as soon as it can safely get away, it leaps or jumps or crawls or does whatever it has to do to get into the nearest cornfield or bunch of bushes or trees or whatever there is around there for cover. And so I tell people who are really afraid of it, especially witnesses who have been affected, and it's almost like a lot of them have what I would refer to as post-traumatic stress syndrome or traumatic disorder, because these people, and you can now sympathize with them, have had their worldview shaken. They now know that there's something out there that science has not yet delineated nor explained, and that we have to admit that we don't know everything that's out there, and that we may never be able to put a label on it, and that's pretty freaky. And you also, many people have this sense that they could have been attacked and eaten if the thing had so chosen, or that it had some sort of other connection with them that scares them. And so they're dealing with these feelings about it. And I really think that probably I get a very small percentage of the actual sightings. I think probably the lion's share of people who encounter these things either never find me, or they're in denial, or they're just afraid to really even talk about it to anybody.
Well, if someone out there listening has seen something like that and they need to get in contact with you, if they've seen what they believe to be a man-wolf, how would they contact you to give you a report?
Well, the easiest way to do it is to go to my website, which is www.beastofbrayroad, and that's BEASTOFBRAY road.com. And then, as I said, you enter in the splash page, and then you'll see a little graphic where you can click on Report a Sighting. And anywhere on any, I also have a website called WeirdMichigan.com. Anywhere on my websites, wherever it says email anything, it all comes to me. I have no staff; it's just me. I get emails saying, "Please make sure Linda Godfrey sees this." Well, if you send the email, it'll get to me because nobody else answers any of my emails. So you can report it, and please know also that I will keep people anonymous upon request. If you don't want your name published, I do not give it out. It's enough that I have your name and your contact information so that I can show it to an editor so they know I didn't make it up if it's something that I'm going to print. But there's no reason that I have to give people's names out to the public. And I'd say it's about 50-50. You know, half of the people say, I don't care if anybody, I know what I saw. I don't care if anybody else knows, you know, use my name. And the other half may have some sort of reason that they don't want their name used. For instance, one witness that I had has a very high security clearance at Milwaukee's Mitchell Airport. And he felt that he would get into trouble if he publicly declared that he had seen this creature 4 times on his way to work.
4 times?
Yeah, sometimes that happens because you just happen to be in the right place at the right time when something is on a temporary feeding path. And this seems to be what happened with this gentleman. He saw it 4 times over the course of about 4 months. And he happened to work a strange shift where he was on the road at 5 a.m. And I'd say that the great bulk of the sightings happen between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., although there are daylight sightings, especially when people go deep in the woods. But most of the sightings happen during the night. And a lot of the witnesses are people who work third shift or work for a movie theater or have some other, or they're hunters or fishermen who are driving to be there at the crack of dawn, have some reason to be out at those hours. And they tend to make up a lot of the witness list.
Well, at the risk of sounding Hollywood, yeah, at risk of sounding like Hollywood Wolfman type stuff, it's not necessarily a full moon either when these things are sighted.
No, and I'm actually glad that you brought that up, Laurie, because I get that question so often, and really that is myth and legend, and a lot of the idea of werewolves come from Hollywood. They come from those Wolfman pictures that were made in the 1930s. And while the writers, Siad Mek and others, did go back to some European lore and tradition, they also made some of it up, because they were really not seeking to educate, they were seeking to entertain. And whatever they could come up with that was plausible sounding, I should say, and yet scary with what they put into this. And I've actually had somebody volunteer. He was an astronomer who volunteered to take every single sighting and correlate it to what the known phase of the moon would have been on the date given. However, very few of the sightings come to me with an exact date because oftentimes people are remembering them from 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. And they'll remember, well, it was sometime in October in 1987. But they can't tell me the exact date anymore because, unless they kept a diary, they wouldn't really have that exact of a record.
Exactly.
I like this one better than Clap for the Wolfman. That's the one most people find. Or Little Red Riding Hood. That's either one of those. I much prefer this. This is actually one of my favorite songs, and I have to tell you, I have a little story that goes with it. About 2.5 years ago, I was riding in my 3-month-old red Toyota Corolla, and I had that playing. That song was playing when somebody came up over a hill and slammed right into me as I was making a left turn, sheared the whole front end of that car off. And it was completely totaled. I was not hurt because I wasn't going very fast at the time, and the soft airbag came out, but I wasn't hurt at all, amazingly and thankfully. But I thought of all the songs to have been playing on my radio at the time when my car is totaled, and the car that totaled me was a Talon, which I thought was kind of strange. Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing. And then it was only a few months after that I was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah, it was kind of a heavy time, but I still like the song, even though I associate it with being in a totaled car wreck. But it's just, you gotta love Warren Zevon. He's just such a great musician.
Yes, he is.
And the words are great.
Such a sense of humor. Great guy.
Oh yeah, right.
If we could get Lauren to give all the URLs, I'm trying to get Lauren to talk more. This is my daughter Lauren, Linda, and she's on the show.
Hi.
And she's
Hi.
Anyway, I'm trying to get her to talk more, and I would like her to give out the URLs that list Linda's books And also
Well,
the phone number for people to call in.
Yeah, for most of Linda's books, you can go to beastofbrayroad.com, like she said, and that also shows where you can buy them, Amazon. You can go to goodreads.com, find her on there.
Oh.
You can find her on there. So that's basically it, but our call-in number is 646-716-4530. Call in and talk to her.
We have a couple questions
Lauren.
in the chat room. If people are out researching for Bigfoot, should they be afraid of running into one of these? Regina is asking that question in the chat.
Well, I wouldn't be afraid of it. I'd be alert. What I always tell people, for instance, in my book Werewolves that I wrote for Chelsea House, I have one chapter devoted to a field guide for the werewolf hunter. And what I always tell people is, please, before you go into any wild area, be sure of what else could be in there besides Bigfoot. And I'm talking about things like cougars, wild hogs are now rampant in so many states, bears. I don't know what you would want to have with you. Maybe some people arm themselves, some people use pepper spray. But most of the time, as I've said, people who run into this creature, if you can just allow it to get away, that's what it will do. It just wants to get away. I don't have any record of people, and I can tell you a really scary story that happened just, I believe, almost exactly 2 years ago between Milwaukee and Racine, Wisconsin, right near the shore of Lake Michigan. There were 4 young people, and there are pictures of this on I have a MySpace blog, which I think is MySpace.com/Linda Godfrey, all is one word. And if you scroll, you have to scroll down to June 2007. And I have pictures of these people and of the footprints. They were walking along a road that leads to a cliff that overlooks Lake Michigan. And the road is not really even a mile long. It starts out in a residential neighborhood and goes for a couple of blocks, and then there's a street light, which is kind of the end of it. And then it gradually turns into more and more wild terrain. There's a wheat field on one side, a cornfield on another. And if you walk far enough, you can stand over and look down at Lake Michigan. And these 4 younger people decided that would be a cool thing to do. It was a nice evening. So they went to take a walk. They had, I think, one flashlight between them and started walking down this gravel road when all of a sudden what they described as classic man wolf, 6 to 7 feet tall, shaggy fur on its hind legs, came out, and they were startled by it, turned around, started running back, and it chased them. And they could actually hear its 2 feet pounding on the road. And it was close enough that the last guy in line, the slowest runner, could actually hear its breath. He could hear it panting and breathing. And at one point, it was close enough that it reached out both of its front paws and managed to just kind of rip and slit the back of his shirt. And I actually have the shirt. He gave it to me. And it was one of those young kind of shirts that young guys wear that are kind of a thin material, and they're oversized button-down shirt. You know what I mean?
Okay, yes.
It was kind of billowing away. It wasn't like a T-shirt that was right next to his skin. So he's running. This thing is kind of, it's very oversized. I have a picture of him wearing it. And it's kind of billowing away from him as he's running. And there are 2 sets of slit marks that look like they were made by multiple claws in the back of his shirt. And there's no reason something like that couldn't have gotten one of these people if it had wanted to.
Exactly.
Evidently, it did not. It did not want to. It, in all cases, just wants to scare people and get away. And I've even advanced the idea of an emotional vampire, which is something that gets us more into the supernatural realm. But an emotional vampire is some type of usually a supernatural creature that feeds on the electrical energy emitted by human beings when they're extremely frightened. You know, basically human beings are electromagnetic transmitters. Our bodies generate.
That are like that.
Yeah.
Vampires.
Well, every human has its own, you know, electromagnetic field because our bodies produce energy, and when we're frightened or afraid, the energy signature changes, and it has been suggested that there perhaps are entities that feed off this kind of energy, and it's even been suggested to me that perhaps these creatures are trying to encounter people so they can scare them, so they can get a good energy boost. And I don't know if that's true. I just offer that as one of the ideas that people have submitted.
Well, we do have a phone caller, and I want to go ahead and bring them on. Who do we have there? Is that you, Luke?
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, Luke Gross is here. Hi, Luke.
Hello,
how are
Luke.
you doing?
Hi,
Howdy.
Luke.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just
Good to
thought
talk to you.
Yeah, same here. I just wanted to call in and ask you. We was talking about, you know, these creatures being pretty much scattered across the country or found or seen across the country, and I believe we talked about it before.
Oh yes.
As far as the loup-garou in Louisiana, you think that they could explain away some of the folklore there, as far as concerning the loup-garou in Louisiana?
Oh, I think definitely. You know, because it's really just the French variation. It's a variation on the French for werewolf. And there you'll find variations of it, like rougarou is another variation of that word, and it's just gee, my own little werewolf here, my Lhasa Apso, is trying to bite my hand. I don't know if he doesn't like me talking about his brothers like that or what. So if I sound a little bit distracted here, that's why. But no, I definitely think that, as we had talked about at the very beginning of the show, this creature is all over, and every culture and every pocket of the country translates it in its own special way and gives it its own name. And people tend to think, well, this is something that's only found here. Here we have a loup-garou. Here we have a Michigan dogman. Here we have a beast of Bray Road. When it's actually the same creature, just in different places, but having different names, because nobody knows or understands that it's a much more widespread phenomenon.
And we call it the snout noses here. That's what we call them, the snouties, the snout noses.
I've
heard that.
Mm-hmm.
There's another. I'll just throw this out to you, and I'll get off here. But I just wanted to mention
you don't have to get off of here.
No, not at all.
But I'd heard of
By the
one
way,
report
let me
here.
interject something here. Luke
Yeah.
is one of the best wildlife and Bigfoot artist I have ever seen in my life. The man
It's incredible.
is incredible, and I just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And speaking of that, Linda, I was working on, and still am working on, a piece of artwork for you. I was supposed to have it done last year, but I didn't, or 2 years ago. But it's
well, you know, the timing's very good, because you know I'm working on that third Beast book.
Right. Well, I can definitely have it ready. I'm close now, so.
The sooner the better. That's excellent.
Yeah, I'll get that to you as soon as I finish it.
Excellent.
I'd heard a report, and I think Laurie may have heard of this report, of a snout-nosed creature being seen, but it was described more of looking like a mandrill. You know, the apes,
right,
Africa.
Right.
But having the more wrinkled snout and longer face, I wonder if that could possibly be connected with the same creatures.
Well,
where was that seen?
That was seen in Texas.
Oh, wow.
There are variations and I've heard it, that very occasionally somebody will report a shorter nosed or shorter snouted one, and I think again that this can be explained if you're talking about natural creatures. If you look at any pack of timber wolves, you're going to see a lot of variation within that same pack. If you study wildlife at all, and sometimes you'll see a pack of them like on, say, National Geographic, and I'm always astonished at the differences in the wolves within any one pack. If you look at it, because in your mind you tend to think, pack of wolves, and in your mind you think of this whole group of gray animals, and it's not that way at all. You'll find them ranging from black to brown to light gray, and their snouts do vary in size. Occasionally, you'll see some that have longer, some that have somewhat shorter, and even within dog breeds, for instance, annoying little Lhasa Apso that you've been hearing barking on this radio show is named Grendel.
All your attention. He wants all your attention.
He does. He's extremely needy for a Lhasa, but whereas my last one could have cared less. But even between the two of them, they're both purebred Lhasas, and they have very different snout lengths. So within a species, this is something that can vary, but they still have a pronounced snout. You still would not mistake either one of them for, say, a chimpanzee, because they're still definitely canines.
Yeah, I see that. And you have, and of course, wouldn't you think that habitat could possibly be a reason for different, as far as habitat adaptation for these creatures?
Definitely. Okay. Definitely, because if they're living in some place where, let's say, there's some sort of food source that, for some reason, animals with shorter snouts have an easier time eating more of it or getting to it or whatever, well, it's just how the law of adaptation works. More of those shorter snouted creatures are going to breed and survive, and soon they will dominate the area if that happens to be some sort of local advantage for them.
Mm-hmm. And I was taking that kind of into consideration for in Bigfoot research also, as far as different habitat, different physical characteristics. Yeah, in here in the state of Texas, you'll have the Bigfoot that are they're not quite as heavy as what you might find, say, in the Pacific Northwest, because they don't have the severe winters that they have to deal with. So, I mean, here they're taller. Not taller, but they're more lean. And it seems that their hair is longer here also. That's kind of interesting.
I think.
And I've often thought it could be a genetic mutation too, sure. And some of these could be a recessive gene just being passed and just showing up occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, we have the same thing with Bigfoot in Wisconsin. They are really not the same thing that you get reported out in on the Pacific West Coast, where they are sometimes reported as 9 foot to 10 feet tall. In Wisconsin, you just wouldn't support something that large, and they are generally bigger than the man wolf. Usually, the Bigfoot reports will be between 7 to 8 feet tall around here, and much shaggier hair. In fact, sometimes they say they can't even really see the face at all. It's just this flat fall of hair in front of the facial features, and kind of like a cape puddling onto the shoulders is how it will be described in many cases. But they're leaner. The weight is less, and that makes a lot of sense because we don't have those miles and miles of super dense terrain that they have on the Pacific West Coast, and the kind of rainy atmosphere. It's just a different environment, and so of course that's something that you see repeated in nature anytime, anywhere, is that creatures adapt to their environment. However, I also make the point that you can make a pretty good case that these creatures follow the paradigm that most Native Americans have told me, which is that they believe they are able to go back and forth between this world and what they call the spirit world, and that while they're here, they are 100% corporeal. They have to eat. They leave tracks. They, act just like natural physical animals. But that they can also go back.
What have they been reported to be eating that you know of? What is their dietary? Have you ever received any reports of them eating anything?
Oh yes, what very, very frequently. Roadkill is the most frequent. Very, very frequently. In fact, that seems to be the basis for a lot of sightings. The creatures are lured out onto the road because there's a nice freshly killed raccoon or something, and then they're observed in the act of picking it up. And that's what always strikes witnesses so strange, is that normally you have a quadruped of any sort, a dog or a wolf or a bear, they're going to pick something up in their mouth and run away with it. That's what my dog does when he finds something good. He picks it up in his mouth and he runs away with it. He does not pick it up with his front paws and run away on his hind legs. And yet that is what people see the man wolf doing with either these freshly killed raccoons or very often what look like parts of a deer carcass. And Bigfoot are often seen dragging away parts of deer carcasses, carrying them in their arms.
Okay, I wanted to go ahead and bring Luke on because I know last time Luke called in, he sat on hold so long he just gave up. I didn't want that to happen this time. So what I want to ask you about is the emotional vampire thing. You were saying that you felt that it fed off of the fear, the energy that fear puts off, or is that what
that's one possible interpretation and explanation for why it seems to almost revel in scaring people out of their wits and then just runs off. Rather than going for the kill, it seems to get off on getting them scared. And then it has what it wants and it runs away. That's what some people have told me. Not every single witness is terrified of it, but many are, and it just seems that would be one way of looking at it, one possibility. And I do try to remain open to all possibilities, just because I don't want to rule something out and then close my mind to it.
Exactly, because even if you don't totally agree with it, this is the way Bigfoot people do too. If we don't totally agree with what we've heard, a lot of times we'll just shelve it. Because later on down the road, there will be another story that collaborates with that one. And then, when you start to see a pattern, then there might be something to it. Go ahead, Luke. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say I'm going to get off here. But, Linda, listen, it's been great talking to you and great hearing you on the show. Laurie, y'all are doing a fantastic job. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
But I'm going to go, and I'll get that artwork to you, Linda, as soon as I'm done with it.
Oh. That's fabulous. And, too, I'm so glad you called in, Luke. It was great hearing from you.
Okay, well, you guys take care, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey, Laurie.
Yes.
We have someone in the chat room, Shadow Girl, and she says that she has a picture of something small, red, with a snouted nose area, and she had, and I asked her, I said, Shadow Girl, you have such a picture? And she says yes, and she said she would like to send it to you and let you look at it.
To me?
To Linda.
Or to Linda? Okay.
To Linda.
Sure, you can just send it via my email address off of the Beast of Bray Road web. Just email me anywhere off of the Beast of Bray Road website, and it should get to me. I'm wondering if it's something she took or something that she found on the internet, because I may have seen it if it's been on the internet.
I don't have the chat in front of me, so.
I'm asking her. I asked her, and I'm waiting for a response.
Because there are certain ones that circulate, and people send them to me all the time. For instance, there's the one that was supposedly taken by a waterfall up in Canada that shows something sort of baboonish looking, holding what kind of looks like a little white dog, but you can't really tell because they're really just blurs,
I've seen that. I've seen that one.
Yeah, my response is that it's interesting, but unfortunately, it's kind of useless because you can't really prove anything by it. It's not clear enough to prove that it isn't tree shadows or something else. You just can't see enough of it to really make a good, even a guess as to whether it's real.
That's true.
She says a friend shared it with her, and she said it was not on any website. The picture.
Oh well, I'd really be interested in seeing it then. Sure.
Okay. All right. You heard us, Shadow Girl. Send it on to her.
Just go to beastofbrayroad.com, and where it says report a sighting, or anywhere else where it says email, just punch it and it'll get to me.
Okay. And she says it's from private pictures, so that'll be good.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, great.
Send that on in and let Linda have a look at it. And she said she would.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Linda,
right.
I have a question to ask you. What was the last book that you put out? Which one was it?
Well, let's see. I believe the last one that actually came out, it would have been probably Strange Michigan.
Okay.
Came out just last fall. And I think Lake and Sea Monsters had come out that summer. And then Strange Michigan came out in the fall. I'm trying to remember.
Well,
I'm up, when you get up there around 10 or so, they start blurring together in my mind. And I have to stop and remember which is which. And then I'm always working on 2 or 3 at the same time, too. I'm working on the third Beast book and also one on Wisconsin hauntings. So I have massive piles of stuff around, for both of them.
Oh, my goodness. So you are also interested in the paranormal, ghosts and hauntings and spirits and
well, I had
like that also.
I had to do a lot of research of that type when I was doing the books for the Weird series, the Weird Wisconsin, Weird Michigan, and then the follow-up, Strange Wisconsin, Strange Michigan, which were all new, but just with a different publisher. And so I had quite a bit of that research on hand. I'm really most interested in the creatures, but I'd like to mention that I do collect all kinds of strange creature reports. Okay. One of my favorites is in the Strange Wisconsin book, not the Weird Wisconsin, but the Strange Wisconsin, which is the lacrosse man bat. And this was a sighting that I kind of doubted at first, and I did not write anything about it. I said I'm going to come and investigate this, and I was there within a couple of weeks and spent a weekend combing over the site and interviewing and re-interviewing, and ended up finding other witnesses. And this was a bat-winged, man-sized creature with a furry body and a wolf-like face with fangs that almost flew into the windshield of a man and his 25-year-old son as they were driving home just north of La Crosse.
How big was it? How big was it?
It had a 10-foot wingspan.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it was huge. And they thought it was going to hit their windshield and were braced for impact. And then instead, it just shot straight up and over the tree line. And as it shot up, it emitted this very piercing shriek. And the two of them both became physically ill. One of them threw up almost immediately, and the older one, who was in his 50s, was sick for a couple of weeks from it. Was just getting over it by the time I got there to investigate. And we had
sort of sounds like Mothman.
Yeah, it does, except it did not have the big red eyes, and the necklace thing. So it was
or the like the Jersey Devil,
Right. Yeah. These big wing things. So there are weird flying creatures. There are also lizard men that have been reported. And the strange thing is that. Pardon?
I've heard stories about the lizard man.
Yeah, they're a little more rare, but they do show up. And the interesting thing is that oftentimes you get all these creatures in one strange spot. And in my Hunting the American Werewolf book, I was able to isolate one of these spots. It's in a county that's actually north of the county that Bray Road is in, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. And I located what I call the 13 square of strangeness. It's 13 miles on either side, and it's within that 13 square mile area. You have everything from giant bipedal birds, mammal sightings, Bigfoot. There is the Aztlan State Park with the very mysterious prehistoric pyramid mounds and things like that. You've got a road that's been historically haunted with strange things happening on it for many, many years. There's an old Catholic institution where many exorcisms were performed and where one of the weirdest and oldest man-wolf sightings occurred in an Indian mound. And lots, there's Rocky, the sea monster that's in Rock Lake near Lake Mills, all of this within one 13 square mile area. And it's what John Keel called window areas, where he believed there were certain places that served almost like portals to other dimensions, and that things could come and go from these portals, which tallies perfectly with what my Native American friends tell me about many of these creatures.
I have another question for you.
I would love to camp out there.
Well, you know, there's a wonderful place to camp there because it's right on the edge of the Kettle Moraine State Forest. Lots and lots of great campgrounds. Yep. Plenty of good camping.
Well, you know, you're liable to see anything there. You know, I love Bigfoot research, and I love going out searching for Bigfoot, but, you know, it's
a very hot Bigfoot area, let me tell you that. That particular,
you're liable to see some strange things there, not just Bigfoot.
Right,
you know?
Right. If you look at it, take a look at Hunting the American Werewolf, and there's a map of it in there. And then you can read about all the different things that occurred within that area. And you can then Google Jefferson County, Wisconsin campgrounds and find places to camp. And trust me, I think you really have a better chance of something weird happening in that 13 square mile area than you do on Bray Road. There's just so many more phenomena and recent, you know, and Bigfoot sightings by people that I really know personally and that have seen it close up in that area. And frequently.
Cyber Squatch wants to know if what Linda thinks about the Kentucky Land Between the Lakes incident.
I think that's very interesting. I'm not sure that it's the same creature that I investigate because it appears to be something that's much more violent and behaves differently. You know, from the sound of it, it seems like a very super muscle wolf-like creature, and on the surface it sounds similar, but the behavior is really not. And what I have to look at is the vast number. I've never had anybody report something that violent and strange to me personally, and I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sightings from this country as far away as Australia, and they really follow a pretty consistent pattern. So when I see something that the behavior is so very different, it makes me stop and ask, you know, and I'm not questioning the reality of the situation at all. Just it makes me say, what is different here? There's something different here. So there seems to be a proximity to military bases. There are these strange little shelter-type areas that, if anybody's familiar with the story, that are unexplained. There was supposed to be a family camping that was right by the Beast of LBL. It's got so much more to it, and it's so different than the types of reports that I collect that it just makes me think we're dealing with a different phenomena here. You know, and I'm not saying it isn't a real phenomena or that, you know, it isn't well researched. Because I think it is on both counts. I just think it may be something very different.
Luke wants to know if any.
But okay, Luke wants to know I guess he fell out. Luke wants to know, are these creatures sighted by cemeteries or burial mounds?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
And in fact, something else that I've noticed, the more the reports come in, and this is why I keep urging people to make the reports, even if the reports are 20, 30 years old, I still want to get them and hear them because it helps me compile data. And what I'm finding is that I do see more sightings than you would normally think would happen near cemeteries, burial mounds, and military grounds. Now, it's interesting to me because, again, you can make a case for either the natural or the supernatural creature based on these three things. What do these three things have in common? Well, the main thing is that very old sacred spaces are often located on the highest ground and near some type of special water feature. And you find this in cultures worldwide. This is a very ancient thing, and certainly in North America that's very often the case. You often find cemeteries put in the same places where the old Native American burial grounds were, because oftentimes settlers would see the signs that it was a cemetery, and they would locate their own cemetery in the same place. And then you also find military installations located in the same place because the very factors that make these old sacred spaces so valuable to whatever culture built them, the fact that they're on high ground and they're near water, also make them the best place to have a military installation. You want it on high ground, yes, where you can see all around you, and you need a water source to survive. So you could say that, well, it's because these things are guardians of the old sacred spaces, or that they emanate out of some special energy from these old sacred spaces, or you could say it's because they need water, and they need to follow water sources like any natural creature would. You can find all these correlations, but you can't necessarily come to one conclusion or the other because you can find reasons for going either way.
Okay, we have another question. This one's direct to me. Texas Millimeter wants to know, did I feel claws when my foot was touched? He's talking about, I felt something grab my foot to the tent wall. No, I did not feel claws, Texas Millimeter. Okay, second question. Yes, Okro has a question out there. Her question is, what is the average size of the prints of these things?
Usually they're about the size of a man's foot, 8 to 11 inches. And if you go to my MySpace, if you go to that MySpace,
is it the entire foot that they're seeing, or just the top part of the foot, the ball?
Well, this is the weird thing. These things walk on the balls of their feet, but they seem to have a heel point that dips down, which makes it a little different from a regular canine. Sometimes they'll look like a really huge canine print, and 6 to 7 inches, which is bigger than a timber wolf. I think a good sized timber wolf print is usually around 4 inches, something like that. Or a really big dog will be 3 to 4 inches.
But it looks like a canine track.
Well, I think Luke has called it. Yeah, it still looks canine. It doesn't look like anything else. And I think Luke has seen these particular ones. He'll call them old 3 toes. Sometimes they have 4 toes with claws showing, and you can always see the points of the claws. And sometimes 3. And if you go back on my MySpace page, myspace.com/Linda Godfrey, I think that's what it is, without looking at it. I'm thinking there may be a blog stuck in there somewhere. But you can visit MySpace page and then hook onto my blog from there. Go back to about June 7th, where these 4 people were chased between Milwaukee and Racine. When I went and investigated the area in the daylight, it was like 1 or 2 days afterwards, so it was very fresh. I didn't just look at the road. I went back in on the side of the road where they had seen this thing. There was a woods next to the field, a small woods, And we walked back in there, and maybe about 50 feet back, and these kids were not in that area at that time because this is dark, it's nighttime. They weren't mucking around out in the mud in the woods. They were just trying to walk down to the cliff end. We found a mud hole. The mud hole was maybe about 6 feet in diameter. It wasn't real large, but there were several kinds of prints. And one set of prints was clearly a deer, and the deer's hind legs, you could see, were dented very deeply in where it took a big spring as if something had startled it. And then there were clear canine prints, which I had found elsewhere. At the cliff end, I had also found the same canine prints. And then there were these other things. And I laid my ruler down. And by the way, I always tell people, carry rulers with you everywhere. Because if you need to take a picture, you need to be able to show how big it is. It means nothing.
Exactly.
If nothing else, throw down a coin or something. Put your hand next to it, whatever you can do.
Anybody could take a wolf track and take a picture of it, claim it was a lot bigger than it was.
Right.
You know.
Right, and blow it up. Well, and this mud was pretty good. It was compact enough that I'm quite sure that there wasn't any spread because the deer tracks were exactly the right size that a deer track should have been. The other canine prints were exactly the same size as the canine prints I found at the end of the road. And then there were these things. They had claws. They had these little toes. There was another indentation. And you can see by the ruler, it's about 8 inches long. There's simply nothing that fits the description that's known. And yet it matches many of the man-wolf prints that have been left. Again, in Hunting the American Werewolf, the funeral director down in the southern Georgia swamp that encountered one and then later went back and checked the sand for footprints, drew the sand print that he found. And it was next to it was the same size as his men's size 11 shoe. And it looked exactly like this print that I found and took the picture of between Milwaukee and Racine. And there was no way that I had the print drawing from this man before I found this print and took the picture of it between Racine and Milwaukee. And one's in Wisconsin and one's in Georgia, and they're identical. And I think Luke has seen the same thing.
I think why people are so afraid of this man-wolf is because of Hollywood. We have the movie Wolfen out there. We have American Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in Paris, dog soldiers. There's stuff made of nightmares. People being eaten alive and dismembered and clawed wide open and just horrible, bloody, violent. And I'm going to be straight up with all of you. Werewolves give me nightmares. There's not very many things that give me nightmares. If I sit down and watch a werewolf movie, I will have nightmares about werewolves that night.
Me too.
And I used to have a research partner. He'd sit there, and it would be in the dark and be real quiet, and he'd go, you know what? Feels like there's a werewolf out there. And, he didn't have to say that. He didn't have to say that because I immediately start breaking out prickly sweat, start looking around, even though I'm saying they don't exist. In my mind, I'm saying they don't exist.
Well, they do exist. They do exist, and I've got just too many sober, sane, regular people reporting it from every walk of life, old, young, in between, men, women, children. And the thing is, they're nothing to mess with.
Right.
I really think that it's foolish to go into a wild area if you really think that one of these creatures is in that area, if you have some reason to believe it, to go unprotected into a wild area and mess around because we don't know what they are. We really don't know what they are. And you don't know if it's something that you'd have to, so far as I know, nobody's been hurt by one, but that doesn't include anybody who was entirely eaten and dragged away and we never heard from again. You know what I'm saying?
When I had my sighting, Linda, all I had was a knife, a short Bowie knife, and I was fully expecting to have to make a stand with that thing, I'd already come to the conclusion that I could not run. I can't run anyway. If it was coming toward me, I was just going to have to turn around and fight it. And that's all I had with me.
To the effect he was just going to stab himself and get it over with.
Yeah, I said, I really thought about just going ahead and cutting my own throat just to go ahead and get it over with.
Wow.
That's how scared I was.
Yikes.
I shouldn't be laughing because that's really not something funny, but Tex did have a question in the chat room. He asked if I recall the prints by the sawmill building before I had that sighting, and we did find large canine prints near the sawmill.
Really?
Now, at the time, we had a very large dog brought in there, and that's what we assumed it was, and it could be. But they were very, very large canines. So they're not anything like what Linda describes, but they were pretty good size. So
yeah, it's a good. Anytime anybody encounters something like that, if there's any way you could measure them, or if nothing else, make a little quick sketch of them and estimate. Put your own palm over them, or try and count by inches how wide they are. And there's a difference. The little pad under the toe pads has a different shape if it's a cat or a canine, a cougar or a wolf. Will have a little different shape to it. And anything you can record like that is very important information.
We've run out of time, folks.
Wow, it did go fast.
I want to thank Linda. We want to thank Linda for coming. We've really, truly enjoyed your visit.
Linda,
I wish we had more time.
Love talking to you. I wish we could have the whole evening. We're going to have you back. I hope you will come back and talk with us some more about the man wolf.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I always enjoy it.
You go ahead and stay on the phone, Linda, and we'll go ahead and sign off, and we can talk afterwards.
Yeah. Sounds good. And please get hold of me at beastofbrayroad.com. Anybody who wants to, just write me through that, please.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Please come back next week. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, I think we are still on the air.
Yes, we're still on the air.
We try to get that outro in time. I think we jumped the gun just a little, but you never know. You never know.
Right. Better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly. Linda, I tell you what, though, I've really enjoyed this show, but I really didn't want to believe that the man wolf is real.
Well, I can't tell you exactly how real it is. I'm still on the fence as to what it is, but
yes.
I would love to have, if both of you would like to email me renditions of your accounts, and I'll be sure to, if you want to be identified, I'll be sure to give your show a plug then, so.
Okay. Let me ask you something. Do you need to know the location, or will you reveal the location?
I can keep the exact location secret. If I at least know the general geographic area, and then I can describe the terrain that it's in. I don't have to give people a road map, and oftentimes I feel better not. I feel better not giving people a road map to it.
That's great, because where I went, it's just best that a lot of people don't go off into that area.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's sacred ground anyway, and shouldn't be a lot of foot traffic in there.
No, and I can say that it's sacred ground. It's not going to be revealed, but it's within the general area of, just so people have an idea of where it is, and then just what the specific, it's very helpful to know what kind of plants or what kind of trees it's in, if you know that.
Okay.
Were there pine needles on the ground, or mud, or sand, or what just whatever clues I can get about the location that won't give it away are really helpful.
I'll give you a very descriptive.
And the time and the weather and the that kind of thing. Just the whole.
Well, I can tell you exactly what day this happened and what time.
Perfect.
I can too.
It was just recent enough for me that But it was on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
It's on Valentine's
yes, yours
Day.
was.
Mhm.
Very interesting. Well, I'll be looking forward to those.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Linda, we
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Thanks
We're
again.
not going to
You're
keep
welcome.
you any longer. And
Oh
we're
no,
not
my
we don't want your baby dog to suffer anymore without any more attention.
he is still barking. He is still barking, if you can believe it.
Linda, maybe sometime in the future you could come back and do another show.
I'd
We'd
love
love
to.
that.
Sure. It would
Thank
be
you
fun.
so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
God bless,
Thank you
ma'am.
for coming, and God bless
You're
you.
welcome. I'll look forward to your
Bye.
emails. Bye-bye.
Okay.
We'll
Bye-bye.
get 'em.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
great. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well, Brian, another great show. And we'll see you all later. And see you next week.